The evening began like any other quiet winter night in the mountains. The snow outside fell in soft flakes, brushing against the window like feathers. Elena Carter stood at the kitchen counter, hands resting on the rim of a mug she hadn't touched in minutes. Steam curled upward and disappeared, just like her calm. Her stomach fluttered faintly, a reminder that she was no longer just herself now. 8 weeks, the doctor had said. Still early, still fragile. Ryan hadn't come home yet. He was always late lately, always somewhere she couldn't quite reach. The scent of his cologne clung to the hallway even when he wasn't there. His laughter echoed in her memory, but lately it felt rehearsed, hollow, like a performance he no longer wanted to give. She tried to tell herself it was work, that the man she loved wouldn't betray her, but the silence between them had grown louder than any argument. When the door finally opened, she turned quickly, hope rising before she could stop it. He stepped in, shaking snow from his jacket, phone still in his hand. He didn't even look at her. "You're late," she said softly. He muttered something about a meeting, about investors, but his tone was wrong. She knew it before she saw the message flash across his phone screen. A woman's name. A sentence that twisted her inside out. "Can't wait for tomorrow night." Elena froze. The air in the room turned sharp. Ryan followed her gaze and sighed, as if she were the one at fault for looking. "Give me the phone," she whispered. "Don't start this again," he said, sliding it into his pocket. She took a step forward, voice trembling. "Who is she, Ryan? Tell me the truth." He laughed once, short and cruel. "You really want the truth? You're just convenient, Elena. You make me look respectable." The translator with the quiet smile and the clean record. "You were never more than a cover." The words landed like blades. She shook her head, tears stinging. "I'm pregnant." He stopped for a heartbeat, eyes narrowing, then shrugged. "Then that's your problem, not mine." When she reached for him, desperate, he shoved her back. The edge of the table caught her hip, pain blooming down her side. The mug crashed to the floor, shattering like her hope. Ryan stared at her, jaw tight, breathing fast. "You've ruined everything." Blood welled on her lip where she'd bitten it. She pressed a trembling hand to her stomach, fear and heartbreak twisting together. "Don't call me," he said, grabbing his keys. And then he was gone, door slamming behind him. For a long moment she couldn't move. Only the ticking of the clock filled the silence. Then she staggered to her feet, grabbed her coat, and stepped into the storm. The cold hit her like a slap. The world outside was white and endless, the road vanishing beneath snow. She climbed into her old car, started the engine, and drove. She didn't know where she was going, only that she had to keep moving. The snow thickened, swirling under the headlights like ghosts. Tears blurred her vision until everything shimmered. She could still taste blood, still hear his voice telling her she was nothing. The tires hissed against the ice, the wipers beating a frantic rhythm. She whispered to herself, "Stay awake, stay calm." But her hands shook, her breath came fast. The road curved ahead, slick with frost. Headlights reflected off the snow, blinding her for a split second. The steering wheel jerked in her hands. The car slid sideways. Elena gasped. The world spun, a blur of white and shadow. Metal screamed against the guardrail. Glass shattered, snow exploded through the open window. Her body jolted, pain flaring across her chest and face, and then silence. The car came to rest at the bottom of a slope, half buried in drifts. She hung between darkness and light. Heartbeat slow, breath shallow. Outside, the snow kept falling, soft and relentless, covering everything. She tried to lift her hand, but it wouldn't move. A whisper escaped her lips, thin and broken. "Help me." The storm answered with nothing but wind. Blood slid warm down her temple. Her vision dimmed, the edges fading. She thought of her mother's voice, of a promise to fight no matter what. She wanted to keep it, but the cold was stronger. The last thing she saw before the dark swallowed her was the faint glow of headlights in the distance, cutting through the snow like a miracle. Then everything went still. The sound of wind was the first thing she heard, a low, endless howl that seemed to move through her bones. Elena tried to open her eyes, but the world was tilted sideways. A haze of white and silver surrounded her. The windshield was cracked. The steering wheel pressed painfully against her chest. Every breath felt like a knife slicing through her ribs. She tasted blood, cold and metallic. She blinked again. Shapes came into focus, snowflakes swirling through the broken glass, glittering in the faint light. Her mind fought to remember what had happened, the road, the crash. "Ryan," his face twisting in anger. The memory hit like another blow and she gasped. Air fogged before her lips. She tried to move, but a sharp cry escaped as pain seared through her side. Her fingers brushed something warm and sticky on her coat. She was bleeding. Panic rose thick and choking. She pressed her hand against her stomach, whispering, "Please, please, no." She waited for a sign, for a movement, for anything. The faintest flutter came, a weak reassurance that made her eyes fill with tears. She had to get out. She had to live for the baby with trembling hands. She fumbled for the seatbelt. It clicked open and she fell sideways against the cold metal of the door. Pain flared again, but she ignored it. Using every bit of strength she had left, she pushed at the door. It wouldn't budge. Snow packed against it, sealing her inside. She kicked once, twice. The third time it gave way with a groan. Snow spilled in, freezing against her skin. She crawled out, dragging herself through the white drifts, breath, shallow vision dimming. The highway was gone. Only an endless field of snow and darkness stretched around her. The wind whipped her hair across her face. She tried to call for help, but her voice came out thin and broken. Her legs shook, refusing to hold her weight. She stumbled forward, each step slower than the last. The cold was everywhere, sinking through her coat, her gloves, her skin. She wanted to lie down just for a second to rest, but the tiny heartbeat inside her pushed her on. She had to keep moving. She had to survive. Somewhere in the distance, a light flickered. Faint and moving headlights. She blinked, trying to focus, afraid it was another hallucination, but the sound followed, low and steady. The rumble of an engine. She fell to her knees, waving one arm weakly over her head. "Please stop. Please," she whispered. The vehicle slowed, tires crunching on ice. 2 figures stepped out, dark shapes against the snow. One tall, the other broader. The taller one moved quickly toward her, his voice deep and commanding over the storm. "There's someone here." Strong hands lifted her gently off the ground. Warmth surrounded her. His coat smelled like smoke and rain. She tried to see his face, but everything blurred. She caught only pieces, dark hair, a scar along his jaw, eyes that burned even in the dim light. "Stay with me?" His voice cut through the haze. "Do not close your eyes. You are safe now." She wanted to believe him, but her body betrayed her. Her head fell against his chest, and the world tilted again. The last thing she heard before everything went black was another man speaking hurriedly. "Boss, we need to move. The roads are closing fast," the first voice answered, steady and calm. "Get her inside now and don't call the hospital. Not yet. Too many eyes, too many." Questions Elena wanted to ask: who he was, why he sounded both dangerous and kind at the same time, but the darkness pulled harder. She felt herself being carried, the cold fading, replaced by the hum of an engine and the warmth of strong arms. The man's heartbeat steady beneath her ear. She clung to that rhythm as everything else slipped away. She did not know his name. She did not know that he was the most feared man in Montana. She only knew that, for the first time since Ryan had left her, bleeding in the snow, she was not alone. A soft light brushed across her eyelids, pulling her from the darkness. Elena stirred against something warm, her body heavy, her mouth dry. The faint scent of cedar and smoke filled the air. She opened her eyes slowly. The ceiling above her was high wooden beams running across polished stone walls. This was not a hospital. The sheets beneath her were clean and soft, but far too expensive for a stranger. Her mind spun. She tried to sit up and pain shot through her ribs. The memory of the crash hit her like a wave. The snow, the headlights, the man who carried her. She looked around, confusion mixing with fear. The room was elegant but strange. Tall windows draped with thick velvet curtains, a fireplace flickering on the far wall. A tray beside her bed held water and folded bandages. She reached for the glass with shaky hands. The sound of the door opening froze her. A man stepped inside, tall, broad-shouldered, dark hair, slightly damp from melting snow. He moved with quiet control, his voice calm. "You should not be sitting up yet," the doctor said. "You need rest." Elena stared at him. The man from the snow. He was even more striking in daylight, his eyes sharp, dark gray, almost black, his jawline marked by a faint scar that made him look both dangerous and human at the same time. "Who are you?" she whispered. He studied her for a moment before answering. "Damien Moretti. You were found on the highway last night, bleeding and half frozen. I brought you here to recover." "Here," she repeated, her voice trembling. "Where is here? A private tea estate outside the city. You are safe for now." The words "safe for now" hung heavy. She noticed the way he said it, calm but deliberate, as if he was used to danger. Following him wherever he went. "I should have been taken to a hospital," she said, trying to keep her voice steady. The storm was too strong, and hospitals are not always the safest places to be. His tone carried something she couldn't name, warning or truth, she could not tell. A woman entered behind him carrying medical supplies. She was in her late 30s, kind eyes but alert. She smiled at Elena. "I am Dr. Voss. You were lucky to survive a few more minutes out there, and you would have frozen to death. You need to rest. No more movement for at least a day." Elena nodded weakly as the doctor checked her pulse. Her thoughts drifted to the word lucky. If she had been truly lucky, she would never have ended up bleeding in a storm depending on a stranger. When Dr. Voss left, Damien remained watching her silently. His presence filled the room, even when he said nothing. "Thank you," she finally whispered. "You did not have to stop last night. Most people would have driven past." He looked away for the first time. A muscle in his jaw tightened. "I do not leave people to die in the snow. It is not in my nature." His voice was quiet, but the weight behind it made her shiver. She tried to read him, but his face gave nothing away. "Who were those men with you?" she asked, his eyes lifted. "Meeting hers men who work for me." That was all the answer he offered. She wanted to ask more, but the exhaustion pulled her down again before she could form another word. Sleep came heavy and dreamless when she woke again hours later. The fire still burned steady outside the window. The snow had stopped falling. The world looked almost peaceful. She sat up slower this time, her side still aching. A folded note rested on the table beside her, written in neat handwriting. "Eat something, then res. We will talk when you are ready, DM." The simplicity of it unsettled her. It felt too formal for a rescuer. She ate slowly, forcing down the warm soup someone had left. The sound of faint voices drifted through the hallway. She caught fragments. Not safe yet. They are still watching orders from the boss. Her chest tightened. Who were they talking about, and who exactly was watching? She moved carefully to the window, parting the curtain slightly below. The snow-covered grounds stretched wide, surrounded by fences topped with cameras. Men in dark coats patrolled the property, rifles slung casually over their shoulders. This was no ordinary estate. A door creaked behind her. She turned. Damien stood there again, his expression unreadable. "You should not strain yourself," he said quietly. "Your body is still weak." "I feel fine," she lied. His gaze flicked to the window, catching the curtain in her hand. "Curiosity is natural," he said. "But it can also be dangerous here." She swallowed, fear rising. "What kind of place is this, Damien?" He took a slow step closer, his voice dropping lower. "The kind of place where you are safe, as long as you do not ask too many questions." Her pulse quickened. She did not know if that was a warning or a promise, but the way he said it made her realize something chilling. She had been saved from the snow only to wake inside a house built on secrets, and every instinct told her those secrets could kill. The morning light spilled through the tall windows, painting golden lines across the room. Elena woke slowly, her body still sore but stronger than the night before. The smell of coffee drifted faintly through the air, and for a brief, fragile moment she forgot where she was. Then the sound of footsteps in the hallway brought the memories back. The crash, the snow, the man with the dark eyes. Damien Moretti, the one who had carried her from the edge of death. A knock came before she could gather her thoughts. The door opened, and a woman stepped in. Tall, elegant, with dark hair pulled back into a sleek knot. She wore a fitted gray suit that spoke of money and discipline. Her voice was smooth when she spoke. "I am Isabella Moretti. My brother mentioned you were awake. I wanted to see how you were feeling." Elena blinked. The resemblance between her and Damien was subtle but undeniable, the same sharp bone structure, the same air of quiet authority. "I am better." "Thank you," Elena said, though her voice still shook slightly. Isabella smiled faintly. "Good. My brother has a habit of bringing home strays, but you are the first one who survived the storm." That made her pause. Survived the storm. The phrase carried weight, more than simple weather. She wanted to ask what it meant, but Isabella continued before she could speak. "Damien will want to speak with you soon. Until then, feel free to walk around but stay within the main house for your own safety." The words "for your own safety" echoed in her chest. She nodded quietly. After Isabella left, Elena got out of bed, wrapped in the robe someone had left, and stepped into the hallway. The corridor stretched, long-lined with oil paintings and antique furniture. Sunlight caught on crystal vases and the gleam of polished floors. But beneath all that beauty, she felt something humming, the faint energy of watchfulness. Cameras in corners, red lights blinking, guards moving quietly past, as if this place existed between sanctuary and prison. She wandered toward the staircase, her steps soft against the carpeted floor. The air smelled faintly of pine and old smoke. Downstairs, the house opened into a vast living area. A grand piano stood near the window, and a large fire burned in a stone hearth. 2 men in dark suits stood near the door speaking in low voices. When they noticed her, they straightened. The taller one gave a polite nod. "Miss Carter, is there something you need? Just air?" she said softly. He nodded once, but his eyes never left her, even as she moved toward the window. The estate grew. Ends stretched wide and endless beyond the glass acres of snow-covered forest, and at the far edge a high fence topped with steel wiring. Something about it sent a chill through her. This was not the home of a simple businessman. This was a fortress. The sound of footsteps drew her attention. Damien approached from the far side of the room. His presence filled the space instantly. He wore black again, no tie. This time his sleeves rolled up, exposing the scar on his forearm. "Good morning," he said. "I see you have met my sister." "Yes," she said quietly. "She seems kind." He gave a short nod. "She is my only family left besides a few loyal men who would die before betraying me." His voice carried something unspoken loss, perhaps. She hesitated, unsure if it was safe to ask. "What do you do, Mr. Moretti?" He looked at her for a long moment, then smiled slightly. "Call me Damien. I import and export goods mostly through European contacts." He said it smoothly, almost rehearsed, but his eyes told a different story. The kind that came from a man used to half-truths and danger. "I overheard your guards last night," she said. "They said someone was watching. Who are they?" Damien's expression hardened immediately, his tone lowered. "Those are not concerns you need to worry about, as long as you remain here. No one will harm you." Her pulse quickened. "Then why do I feel like I'm in a cage?" "Because cages are only dangerous if you forget how to open the door," he answered softly, then turned away before she could respond. Later that afternoon, Isabella found her in the library. The shelves rose high-lined with leather-bound books. Sunlight filtered through tall windows. "This used to be my mother's favorite room," she said, sitting across from Elena. "She loved words more than power. Perhaps that is why she never survived here." Elena frowned. "What happened to her?" Isabella hesitated. "Our mother died when Damien was 15. Our father was already gone, so he learned early that love can be both armor and weapon." She leaned forward softly. "He will protect you fiercely now that you are here, but never missed." Ache that for weakness. Before Elena could ask what that meant, a sudden sound shattered the quiet, a sharp echo like glass breaking. Both women turned. One of the guards rushed in his face. "Pale boss said to secure the perimeter. Someone just triggered the outer alarm." Isabella rose instantly, her calm shifting into command mode. "Stay here," she ordered. Elena's heart pounded as the guard disappeared down the hall through the window. She saw movement, shadows darting near the edge of the property. Then nothing. Minutes stretched long. The only sound, the crackling of the fire. Then Damien appeared, his coat dusted with snow, his eyes darker than before. "Whoever it was is gone," he said. But they knew where to look. Isabella's face tightened. The message was clear. Someone had come close, too close. Damien turned his gaze to Elena, and for a brief second she saw something raw in his eyes, fear not for himself, but for her. "You need to stay inside from now on," he said quietly. "It's not safe beyond these walls." She wanted to ask why, what was really out there, but the words died on her tongue. Damien stepped closer, his voice a whisper more to himself than her. "Whoever sent them will try again, and this time they won't leave without what they came for." Elena didn't understand what they wanted or why he looked at her that way. But deep down, she felt it. The danger had not passed. It had only begun. The storm had passed, but the air inside the Moretti estate felt heavier than ever. Elena woke before sunrise, unable to shake the image of shadows moving beyond the fence. The memory from last night played again in her mind. The sound of breaking glass, the flash of lights, the tension in Damien's eyes. It was not a random trespass. Someone had come for a reason. She sat up, wrapping the blanket tightly around her. The house was silent, except for the distant echo of footsteps somewhere below her. Curiosity pulled stronger than fear. "Shh." He slipped out of bed and followed the faint sound down the hall. The main staircase was dim, only a few wall lamps burning soft golden light. She moved quietly, her bare feet making no sound. When she reached the landing, she heard voices from behind a half-closed door. Damien's deep tone, steady and calm, but edged with something sharper. The other voice belonged to a man she hadn't met before. Rough, urgent, whoever came last night was not local boss. They had night vision gear and silencers, that's professional. Damien's reply came low and cold. "Find out who sent them and why. I want names before noon." Elena froze on the steps, heart pounding. The word boss echoed in her mind. Not businessman, not importer. The truth she had tried to ignore pressed in around her. Damien Moretti was no ordinary man, and this house was not a sanctuary. It was a fortress built on danger. The door opened. Suddenly, Damien stepped out, his dark gaze finding her instantly. He didn't look surprised, only resigned. "You should not be awake," he said quietly. "I couldn't sleep," she admitted, her voice trembling. "Were they here for you or for me?" His expression didn't change, both. Perhaps he said softly, then motioned for her to follow him to the sitting room where the fire still burned low. He poured her a cup of tea, his movements precise, controlled like a man who needed order to survive chaos. "I will tell you the truth, because you deserve that much," he began. "Years ago, my family built an empire in trade, part legal, part not. We made powerful enemies. One of them wants something he believes I took from him, something worth killing for, and he might think it is connected to you because of where we found you." Elena stared at him, trying to breathe through the rising panic. "What could I possibly have that he wants?" Damien's jaw tightened. "Your name was traced to an encrypted account tied to financial transfers. Your fiancé's company was involved in it, Ryan," she whispered. The room tilted around her. Damien nodded. "Kaku. I believe he was laundering money for one of my rivals, and when it went wrong he used you as a shield." Her stomach turned. She remembered the night of the fight, the words he had thrown at her. "You ruined everything." She hadn't understood then, but she did now. Ryan had stolen something that belonged to dangerous men and left her to take the fall. The crash, the storm. It had never been random. She looked at Damien, tears blurring her vision. "So I was running from more than heartbreak. I was running from people who wanted me dead." "Yes," he said softly, "and now they know you survived." The realization hit her like ice. She set down the cup, hands shaking. Damien leaned closer, his voice low. "You are safe here, Elena. No one can reach you inside these walls, but you must trust me. Do not contact anyone. Do not go near the windows. Not until I say it's clear." Before she could answer, the phone on the table rang sharp in the silence. Damien answered, listened for a moment, his face darkening. Then he hung up and turned to her. They found another car abandoned near the highway. Ryan's car. Elena's breath caught. "Is he dead?" Damien shook his head. "No. Body. But there was blood on the seat. Lots of it." His eyes locked with hers. "If he's alive, he's running scared, or worse, he's being used to draw you out." Fear and anger battled inside her. She stood pacing the floor. "I can't just sit here hiding. I have to do something." Damien reached out, catching her wrist gently, his voice steady. "The only thing you have to do is stay alive. You are not ready for the world outside." That sentence should have sounded like control, but it felt like care. She met his gaze, and for a moment the danger around them faded. There was only the warmth in his eyes, the unspoken promise that he would protect her even if it meant destroying everything else. A knock broke the silence. Isabella entered, her face pale. "We have a problem," she said. Someone inside leaked. "The security codes." Damien's grip tightened slightly on Elena's wrist, then he released her. "Show me everything." Isabella handed him a folder. Names. Numbers, movement logs from the night of the intrusion. One of our own men turned off the cameras in the West Wing for 13 minutes. That's how they got in. Damien's expression hardened. "Call Franco double security around the main house. I want every person questioned." Elena felt the chill crawl up her spine. There was a traitor inside the estate. The safest place she knew was no longer safe. Damien turned to her, his voice soft again. "Stay in your room with the door locked until I find who did this. Do you understand?" She nodded. But as he walked away, barking orders, she couldn't stop the thought that maybe saving her had already put him in more danger than he could handle, and the man who left her bleeding in the snow might not be finished with either of them yet. The night felt endless. Thunder rolled somewhere deep in the mountains, and rain lashed against the tall windows. Elena sat in her room staring at the flickering firelight. She could not sleep, not after what she had heard. Traitors inside, blood on Ryan's car. Enemies closing in. She pressed her hand to her stomach. The faint pulse beneath her skin, the only reminder that she had a reason to keep fighting. She had promised herself she would not cry again, but the silence of the house made it harder. The walls seemed to whisper secrets she wasn't supposed to know. A faint sound outside her door made her freeze. Footsteps slow, deliberate. She moved quietly to the corner where a decorative vase sat heavy enough to be used as a weapon. Her pulse pounded. The handle turned once, twice. She held her breath. The door opened slowly, revealing Damien, his hair damp from the rain, his shirt unbuttoned at the collar. He looked exhausted but focused. "I didn't mean to startle you," he said. "I wanted to make sure you were all right. You haven't left your room all day. I thought you told me not to." Elena answered, trying to hide the tremor in her voice. He gave a fey-on. "And smile, true. But isolation has its own dangers." He stepped inside, closing the door behind him. She noticed the faint bruises along his forearm and the red line near his wrist. "What happened to you?" she asked. His tone dropped lower. "Nothing you need to worry about," he said. But the lie sat heavy between them. He was protecting her again from things he could not explain. He moved closer, sitting across from her near the fire. His eyes caught the light. They were colder tonight, sharper like steel. "What are you thinking?" she asked after a long silence. "That the man who betrayed us is still here," he said quietly. "One of mine, someone I trusted." The realization hurt more than she expected, not just for him but for what it meant. If they could reach him, they could reach her too. She shivered, and he noticed. Without a word, he reached for the blanket on the couch and placed it around her shoulders. His hand brushed against her cheek, his touch gentle. "You're safe. As long as I'm breathing," he said. She wanted to believe him. Before she could answer, a loud bang echoed from somewhere below. The room shook slightly. Damien was on his feet, instantly. "Stay here," he ordered, and was gone before she could speak. Elena ran to the window, pulling the curtain aside. The courtyard was alive, with motion guards, rushing flashlights cutting through the rain. Shouts carried through the wind. Someone had breached the fence again. She turned back to her door, torn between fear and the urge to help. Minutes passed that felt like hours. The gunfire came next, sharp bursts that made her flinch, then silence, heavy and absolute. The door opened. Suddenly, Damien stepped inside again, drenched, his jaw clenched, but his eyes were calm. "It's over," he said. "One of the attackers didn't make it. The others ran." "Who were they?" she asked, voice shaking. "Hired men, mercenaries sent by someone who wants you." That simple truth hit her harder than the sound of gunfire. Someone out there knew her name, knew where she was, and wanted her enough to send killers through a storm. "Why me?" she whispered. "I don't have anything. I don't even know what Ryan did." Damien sat on the edge of the table, his tone softer now. "It's not about what you have, it's about what you know. Your fiancé used your identity to hide something that disappeared before he vanished. Money accounts, maybe a list, whatever it was. The people after him think you have it, and they believe killing you will bring it back." Elena's stomach twisted. She covered her face with trembling hands. He reached out, pulling her hands away, forcing her to look at him. "I won't let that happen," he said. "I swear it." His voice was low, rough, like a promise that came from somewhere deep in his soul. "You don't understand," she said through tears. "You're already in danger because of me." He gave a faint, almost broken smile. "I was in danger long before you appeared. You just gave me something worth protecting." The words left her speechless. The silence between them felt different now, not fear, but connection, deep and raw. She looked at him, really looked at the man who carried her from the snow, the man who faced bullets without hesitation. "You saved me," she said. "But why?" Damien met her gaze. His answer simple. "Because I know what it's like to lose everything, and because you were bleeding in the snow, and no one else was coming." She felt the tears fall, but didn't wipe them away. For the first time, the danger outside felt smaller than the storm inside her chest. Damien stood and moved toward the door. "I have to meet my sister and Franco. We'll track who sent them. Stay here and keep the lights low." She nodded as he left. She sank back into the chair, watching the flames flicker across the room, her mind racing. She knew one thing now. Whatever world Damien lived in, she was already part of it, and there was no going back. The snow had taken everything from her once, but now it had given her something she didn't expect: a reason to fight, and a man who had become the only thing standing between her and the darkness waiting outside. The following morning, the world outside was covered in fog, a gray mist that swallowed the mountains and blurred the horizon. Elena stood by the window, watching the guards patrol through the haze. Her body felt heavy from lack of sleep. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw flashes of gunfire and Damien's blood-stained sleeve. She could still hear his voice promising to keep her safe, but deep down, she knew that safety was an illusion. Danger was no longer waiting outside. It had already found its way in. She turned when a knock came at the door. Isabella entered, dressed in dark clothes, her expression colder than usual. "You should eat," she said softly. You'll need your strength." Elena frowned. "Why? What's happening?" Isabella hesitated, then walked closer. "My brother left early this morning. He's meeting with someone who claims to know who ordered the attacks." She paused, lowering her voice. "I told him not to go alone, but Damien doesn't listen when his pride is challenged." Fear tightened in Elena's chest. "Where is he meeting them? At an old quarry north of here," Isabella replied. "If this man is telling the truth, we'll finally know who betrayed us. But if it's a trap," Elena felt the words stick in her throat. "I have to go to him." Isabella's sharp gaze met hers. "Absolutely not." "It's too dangerous." Elena stepped forward, her voice shaking. "You said it yourself. He doesn't listen to reason. Maybe he'll listen to me. I can't just sit here if something happens to him." Before Isabella could answer, one of the guards burst through the doorway, breathless, his face pale. "We just lost radio contact with the boss," he shouted. Everyone in the room froze. Elena felt the blood drain from her face. Isabella's composure cracked for the first time. "How long ago?" 10 minutes, the man said. "But that's not all. We found a message carved into one of the trees near T." He south-fenced 3 words, "He's not alone." Panic erupted through the house. Orders shouted, men running for vehicles. Elena didn't wait. She grabbed her coat and ran down the hall, ignoring Isabella's calls. She slipped out through the side door. The cold air hit her lungs like knives, but she didn't care. She followed the tire tracks down the snow-covered road, heart hammering faster with every step. The fog thickened, swallowing sound and distance until all she could hear was her own breathing. After nearly an hour, she saw faint movement ahead. Black vehicles parked in a clearing, shadows shifting between them. She crouched behind a fallen log, trying to stay low. She recognized Damien immediately standing near a tall man in a gray coat. They were speaking, but the tone was wrong. Damien's body tense, the other man smiling too easily. Her stomach twisted when she saw the glint of metal in the man's hand. A gun. She wanted to scream, but fear held her still. The man in gray stepped closer, laughing softly. "You think you can buy silence, Damien. We both know money isn't enough anymore." Damien's voice came low and even. "What do you want, the truth?" the man said. Or maybe her. His smile widened when he saw confusion flicker in Damien's eyes. "Elena, she belongs to me now." Before Damien could react, 2 more men stepped out from behind the trucks, guns raised. The first shot cracked through the fog. Damien ducked, pulling his weapon. A second later, chaos exploded. Elena pressed her hands over her mouth, fighting not to cry out. Gunfire echoed through the trees. One of the attackers fell, but Damien staggered as another bullet grazed his shoulder. She couldn't stay hidden. Not while he bled again. She grabbed a piece of metal from the ground, her whole body shaking, and ran forward through the mist. Damien turned as she reached him, his eyes widening. "Elena, get back," he shouted too late. One of the gunmen grabbed her arm, twisting it behind her. She cried out. Damien's fury was instant. His gun fired twice. The man dropped, but another struck him across the jaw, knocking him to his knees. Elena broke free, crawling toward him. The man in gray aimed his pistol straight at Damien's head. Without thinking, she threw the metal shard, hitting the man's wrist. He cursed. The shot went wild. Damien lunged forward, tackling him to the ground. The struggle was brutal. Quick, Damien disarmed him, and the gun went off again. The man fell silent, blood dark against the snow, breathing hard. Damien looked up at her eyes, burning with a mix of anger and relief. "What are you doing here?" he demanded. She shook her head, tears mixing with the falling snow. "I couldn't let you go alone." He started to reply, but headlights appeared in the distance, more vehicles approaching. He grabbed her hand, pulling her toward his car. "We have to go now." She stumbled after him as he started the engine and sped through the trees. The world outside became a blur of fog and white. Only when they reached the highway did he slow, his voice rough with emotion. "If you ever disobey me like that again, I will lock you in that house myself." She looked at him, his face pale from blood loss. "I thought you were dead," she whispered. His jaw tightened and he reached across, pulling her close. "You should have let me die, then," he said, "because now they know what you mean to me." His words sent a chill through her, deeper than the cold outside. Whoever had set that trap knew Damien Moretti's weakness now, and that weakness was her. The drive back to the estate was silent. Only the sound of the storm pounding against the windshield filled the air. Elena kept glancing at Damien, his knuckles white on the steering wheel, blood seeping slowly through the fabric on his shoulder. She wanted to tell him to stop, to rest, but she could see it in his eyes. He wouldn't. Not until they were safe when the gates finally appeared through the mist. The guards rushed to open them the moment the car stopped. Isabella ran out, her face pale. "Damien, what happened?" she demanded as he stepped out. He brushed past her voice, calm but cold. It was a trap. Inside the main hall, chaos stirred, men shouting orders, weapons checked and reloaded. Damien moved like a shadow through the storm, his voice slicing through the noise. "Find out who leaked the meeting details and make sure no one leaves the property." Elena followed close behind, watching as he ripped off his torn jacket, the blood stain spreading across his shirt. She grabbed his arm. "You need help. You're bleeding." He looked down at her eyes, softer for a moment, then he said, "I've had worse." Dr. Voss appeared moments later, stitching the wound while Damien sat silent, jaw clenched as the needle worked through flesh. Elena watched the faint tremor in his hands. He wasn't made of stone after all. When the doctor left, Damien stood slowly, turning toward her, his tone quiet but heavy. "You shouldn't have followed me, Elena. I told you to stay at the house." She met his gaze, unflinching. "You would have died if I hadn't." He stared at her for a long time, then sighed, his expression unreadable. "Maybe. But you put yourself in their sights. Now they won't stop until they have you." She frowned. "Why me?" "Still." Damien stepped closer, close enough that she could feel the warmth of his breath, "because they think you have something they want." "Something Ryan took from them before he disappeared. I've searched for it for months and found nothing yet. Somehow you survived when everyone else connected to him vanished. You are the last loose thread." His words chilled her to the bone. "What if I don't have it? What if I don't even know what it is?" Damien's eyes darkened. "Then they will keep coming until we make them believe you are no longer alive." She stared in disbelief. "You mean fake my death?" He nodded quietly. "It's the only way to buy us time." Elena felt her knees weaken. She sank into a chair, the weight of his plan pressing down on her. Isabella entered, carrying a folder. Her voice calm as always. "The media can be handled. Our contacts in T. The police will confirm the wreck when it happens." Elena looked between them both. "You're serious?" Damien nodded. "It's the only way to end this without bloodshed," but his voice betrayed a flicker of doubt. They both knew blood was already on its way. That night the house moved like a machine, preparations made in silence, vehicles readied, phone calls coded in brief. Elena stood by her window watching the snow fall again. It looked peaceful from here, like the world hadn't turned cruel and cold around her. She thought of Ryan, of the night he left her bleeding in the snow, how one moment could destroy everything and how another had saved her. She heard footsteps and turned. Damien entered quietly, his coat draped over one arm. "Tomorrow it happens," he said softly. "Are you sure you're ready?" She nodded, though fear gripped her throat. He stepped closer, his voice lower. "This isn't just to protect you, Elena. It's to draw them out, once they believe you're gone. They'll move without caution, and then we end it." He reached out, brushing a strand of hair from her face. His touch lingered longer than it should have for a moment. She saw something behind the hardness in his eyes, something human, something breaking. She whispered, "You talk like you don't plan to survive this." His lips curved faintly. "I stopped planning that a long time ago." The next morning, gray light broke across the sky. Damien's men set the scene, an abandoned vehicle near the cliffs, flames rising through the fog. Elena watched from the trees, her heart pounding as the fire consumed the car. Damien stood beside her, expression empty. "It's done," he said softly. "Now they'll believe you're dead." She turned to him. "What happens now?" He glanced toward the horizon where the sun was barely cutting through the clouds. "Now we wait." Hours later, back at the estate, Isabella found Damien in his office, her face tense. "We have a problem," she said. "They took the bait too easy." He looked up. "What do you mean?" "I mean someone sent flowers to the gate this morning," addressed to Elena. The card said, "Beautiful things, never stay buried long." Damien froze, then rose slowly, his voice low and dangerous. "Who delivered them?" She shook her head. "The guard never saw anyone." The cameras caught nothing. He crushed the card in his hand, fury flashing in his eyes. "They know she's alive." He stormed toward the hall, barking orders. "Double the guards, lock down every road leading to this property." Elena appeared at the doorway, her voice barely a whisper. "Damien, what's happening?" He turned, his eyes darker than she had ever seen someone inside. "Betrayed us again," he said softly. "And this time, they're not coming to scare us, they're coming to finish what they started." The wind howled outside, rattling the windows. The storm had returned, but this time it wasn't the snow, she feared. It was the people hiding within it. People who already knew where she was and who she had become to the man they wanted, destroyed. The night fell heavy over the mountains, thunder rolled in the distance, and flashes of lightning tore through the dark sky. Elena stood near the window, her reflection pale against the glass. She could hear shouting from the courtyard, men running orders, barked radios crackling. Damien was out there somewhere in the storm preparing for what was coming. She pressed her hand to the cold window, her heart pounding. She had thought faking her death would end this, but it had only awakened something darker. A sudden knock made her jump. The door opened before she could answer. Isabella entered, her face tight, her usual calm replaced by unease. "Damien wants you in the basement now," she said. "Hurry!" Elena followed quickly down the hall, her bare feet echoing softly on the wooden floor as they descended the stairs. The air grew colder, the sound of rain muffled by the stone walls. The basement stretched wide, a network of old wine cellars now converted into a command room. Maps lined the walls. Screens flickered with security feeds. Damien stood in the center wearing a black coat, his hair damp from the rain, his eyes locked on the screens. Franco stood beside him, pointing at a monitor movement near the south gate. 4 vehicles heavily armed. "They'll reach us in 10 minutes. Damien turned sharply. "Send the decoys north. Take the secondary route through the woods. Make them chase shadows." Franco nodded and ran off. Damien turned to Elena. "You stay here. Do not move until I come back." She shook her head. "I can't hide again, Damien. You can't fight all of them." He stepped closer, his voice low. "I can fight enough to buy time." His eyes softened for a heartbeat, then hardened again. "If they find you, this ends badly for both of us." Before she could respond, the power flickered. Once, then went out. The screens went black, the lights died, plunging the room into darkness. The emergency generator hummed weakly, but only a few red lights came on. Damien's voice cut through the dark. "Get her to the safe room now." Isabella grabbed Elena's arm, pulling her through a side passage, the stone corridor narrow and cold behind them. The faint sound of gunfire echoed, distant but growing louder. They reached a metal door hidden behind a stack of crates. Isabella entered a code and pushed Elena inside. "Stay here," she said firmly. "If I don't come back, wait for Damien." Then she was gone before Elena could protest. The door closed with a heavy clang, leaving her alone. The small room was dimly lit, concrete walls lined with old supplies. She sat on the floor, knees drawn to her chest. The sound of gunfire above grew closer. The walls trembled, dust falling from the ceiling. She covered her ears, whispering, "Please let him be alive." Suddenly the metal door rattled. Her breath caught Damien. She called out. No answer. The handle turned once, twice. Her stomach dropped. The door swung open and a figure stepped in. Not Damien, but Dr. Voss. The woman's white coat splatter, eyed with mud. Her eyes wide and nervous. Elena stood frozen, relief flooding her for a second until she saw the gun in Voss's hand. The doctor's voice trembled. "I'm sorry, Elena. They have my son," they said. "If I don't bring you, they'll kill him." Elena shook her head, backing away. "Please, you don't have to do this. We can help you." Voss's voice broke. "I wish that were true." She gestured toward the hallway. "Move now." Elena stepped forward slowly, her mind racing. If she screamed, the sound would never reach anyone. She had to stall as they moved through the dark corridor. She caught glimpses of light from the main hall and the smell of smoke. The estate was burning. When they reached the courtyard, the cold rain hit her face. Blurring her vision through the smoke, she saw a group of men loading weapons into vehicles. One of them turned and her heart stopped. Ryan, his face, thinner, darker eyes, hollow. He smiled when he saw her. "You're a hard woman to kill, Elena." She stared at him, disbelief and fury flooding her veins. "You left me to die." He shrugged. "Business got messy, sweetheart. You were supposed to take the blame, but you just had to survive, didn't you?" Damien's voice came from behind, cold and sharp. "Let her go, Ryan." The scene froze for a heartbeat. Ryan turned the two men facing each other again like ghosts from another life. Ryan raised his gun, but Damien was faster. The shot echoed through the rain. Ryan fell backward, blood spreading across the mud. Voss screamed, dropping her weapon. Elena stood frozen as Damien grabbed her, pulling her close. "Are you hurt?" She shook her head, tears falling. He looked around, eyes scanning the burning buildings. "They'll keep coming," he said. "We have to end this tonight before they could move." Another explosion ripped through the east wing, fire lighting up the sky. Damien pushed her toward the car. "Get inside now." She hesitated, looking back at Voss, who knelt beside Ryan's body, whispering something too soft to hear. Elena climbed in. Damien slammed the door and jumped into the driver's seat. The engine roared as they sped down the mountain road. Behind them, the estate burned like a dying star. The wind howled through the broken windows. Elena turned to him, voice trembling. "It's over, isn't it?" Damien's grip tightened on the wheel. "Not yet. There's one more name on the list. The man who gave Ryan your name, the one who ordered the first attack." His eyes flicked to the mirror and his voice dropped lower. "We're going to end this tonight." Elena felt the cold settle deep inside her chest as the road curved into the darkness. She realized whatever waited ahead was not rescue, it was reckoning. The road twisted through the forest, the headlights cutting narrow paths through the mist. Elena sat silent, her hands gripping the seat as Damien drove faster. The fire from the estate still glowing faintly behind them. The world outside was nothing but black sky and white rain. She could see the tension in his jaw, his focus unbroken. "Where are we going?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. Damien didn't look at her. His words steady to end this, to find the one who started everything. They reached the edge of an abandoned airfield, wind howling through broken hangars. The place looked dead, but Elena felt something moving beneath the silence. Damien stopped the car and stepped out, his boots crunching on gravel. "Stay here," he said. She shook her head. "I am not leaving you alone again." He turned his gaze on her, firm but softer than before. "Then, stay close. If anything happens, you run, understand?" The hangar doors creaked open as they stepped inside. Lights flickered to life, rows of crates stacked high. The smell of oil and metal thick in the air. A man stood waiting in the shadows, tall, wearing a dark suit, his silver hair glinting under the weak light. Elena felt her heart stop. She had seen him before in a picture in Damien's study on the wall behind his desk. The man in the photo had been younger, but his eyes were the same cold and calculating "Hello, son," the man said, his voice smooth like glass. Elena froze. "Damien's father." "You're dead," she whispered. Damien's face was stone. "You should have stayed that way." The older man smiled, a hollow smile. "I built everything you have, Damien, and you repaid me by trying to bury it." Damien stepped forward, jaw tight. "You turned this family into a weapon. You destroyed everyone who stood in your way." The older man shrugged. "It was never personal business, never is." Elena watched them circle each other like wolves, her pulse quickening. Damien's father looked at her, then his smile sharpened, and this must be the girl. The one you risked everything for. "I should thank her. She brought you right back to me." Damien's voice cut through the room. "Leave her out of this." The older man laughed. "She was part of it before you ever met her. Her fiancé worked for me. Did you not know that he took something from my accounts? I ordered his death, but he made a clever move. He hid what he stole in her name and ran your precious Ryan, stole from me and used her as his shield." The truth hit Elena like a knife. Her knees weakened. Damien reached for her, steadying her with one hand. She whispered, "So all of this, the attacks, the lies, it all began with him." Damien's father nodded, almost amused. "He was supposed to die, but you saved him once, and in doing so you ruined my plans." Damien's rage broke free. He drew his gun, pointing it at the man who had once called himself his father. "You sent men after her. You burned my home. You killed my people." The older man's voice dropped to a whisper. "I made you who you are, and now you'll finish the job. Your hands are already stained, Damien." His eyes glowed cold. "Pull the trigger and nothing changes. You'll still be me." For a moment the room went silent. Lightning flashed outside, illuminating their faces. Damien's gun trembled. Elena stepped forward, her voice shaking. "Don't do it, Damien. This ends when you walk away, not when you become him." He looked at her eye. As full of storm and pain, he had spent his life fighting against the monster who raised him, and now the choice stood in his hands. The older man smirked, a cruel glint in his eyes. "You don't have the strength," he said. Damien's gaze didn't waver. "You're wrong." The shot echoed through the hangar, but it wasn't aimed at his father. Damien fired into the ceiling, the noise splitting the air dust raining down. He threw the gun to the ground, his voice rough and low. "I'm done with your blood, your empire, your ghosts." The older man's expression flickered from shock to fury as guards appeared outside. "Sir, police are on their way." Damien's voice stayed calm. "I sent them myself. This ends tonight." His father lunged forward, shouting something, but Damien stepped back, pulling Elena behind him. The sound of sirens cut through the rain, flashing lights spilling through the open doors when the officers stormed in. Damien didn't resist. He raised his hands. His father's empire had fallen, and so had his lies. Hours later, the rain had stopped. Dawn broke over the horizon, soft pink light spilling across the field. Damien stood outside, leaning against one of the police vehicles, his shirt torn, his eyes tired. Elena stepped out of another car, a blanket wrapped around her. She walked up to him quietly. He looked at her for a long moment and said, "It's over." She nodded, her voice low. "You kept your promise. You saved me." He gave a faint, almost weary smile. "No, Elena. You saved me." She reached out, taking his hand. It was cold but strong, she whispered. "What happens now?" He looked toward the sunrise. "Maybe we build something new, not from blood, not from fear, but from what's left of us." He paused, then added softly, "If you want to be part of it." Her answer came in a breath. Yes, months later, the world had changed. The estate was rebuilt, smaller, simpler. Laughter replaced the sound of gunfire. Elena ran her hand over the sign near the gate, the Carne, Moretti Foundation's safe shelter for women and children who had nowhere else to go. Damien stood beside, her watching the snow begin to fall. The same snow that once tried to take her life now felt like a quiet blessing. She turned to him, their fingers brushing warmth in the cold. He whispered this time, "The snow didn't bury us. It gave us a second chance." And for the first time since the night she was left bleeding in the snow, Elena believed it. The pain, the fear, the chaos had led her here to the one man who had saved her not once but in every way that mattered. And as the wind swept softly across the mountains, she knew their story had finally found its peace.